Hello and welcome to part 2, episode 2 of my exclusive podcast with the one and only Mike Perry, who was former head of promotions at EMI Records. What an interesting guy this guy is. You know, I really hope you enjoyed part 1. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it, and then the story will continue here on part 2. But without further ado, before we jump in and show you part 2, listen, do us a favour, subscribe to the channel, because the more subscribers we get, then the easier it is for us to continue making podcasts. So anyway, let's jump in over to continue the interview with part 2. Here's Mike Perry. And in a lot of the cases where, because you do the promotional side, it's no easy, even I'd imagine working with EMI Records, because not every network wants an artist, and sometimes it can go wrong.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so has there ever been a time that any artist you put on TV and you've thought this is just a bloody disaster?
There's two that do come. I can't remember the names, but there's one singer in Sheffield. We did a live outdoor show, and in those days you used to mime to the record, and and as the artist started, the record got stuck. So everyone knew then it was just miming, but it was past there and we started again. And another young singer at Pebble Mill Radio WM in Birmingham, I have to he got a stutter which we didn't know until the day. He could sing, and he did the album and the single and everything, but until this was a live interview, and the interview said, "Hello, welcome to the studio." And this singer started stuttering, and there was sort of consternation all around, and everyone was saying, "Look, what's going on? What's going on?" And anyway, this is fun. I mean, this is actually true, viewers, that when I said, "What's going on?" and his manager said, "Well, he can speak like John Wayne." I said, "For goodness sake, speak like John Wayne." But it was a disaster, really, because when you go dead air on a live radio show, it's...
Yeah.
But anyway, we got through it, but those are just a couple. I mean, there's always memories about artists being a bit late and a frantic time to get there. But
and what about presenters that haven't done their research?
Well, this is the other... That does annoy. I remember once with Neil Sedaka, we're in Birmingham, we did BRMB radio, and I won't name the DJ, but I was very particular. You always sent the biography up front, the CD, the tour date, everything, especially with Neil, because he was very serious about his music, and he wanted to, know what people were doing. So we turned up at BRMB Studios, and I'm on reception, and the DJ comes out, and he said, "Hello, Neil," and his wife was with him, and he said, I don't know much about, I haven't had the biog. And to say that, I said, "Excuse me." I said, "You've had the biog over." But of course, in front of an artist, you've got to be very careful. And I could see a look of consternation. I said, "You've had the biog." And I walked ahead. I said, "There it is." And I'd got another one. I said, "This is what's happening." But it was very unprofessional, really. And that happened a couple of times, so you have to be on your guard for that. But with Neil Sedaka, I mean, I love Neil. Just as a story, the first major TV show I did was with Neil Sedaka.
All right.
It was 1974 when I just joined Polydor, and we did Pebble Mill at 1. And this is how raw I was. I was in the office at Polydor, and Malcolm J, a friend of mine who was a DJ in Birmingham, he said, "Oh, I'll introduce you to Dave Williams. He's the producer of Pebble Mill at 1, Mike." So I met the producer, and I said, "Oh, Neil Sedaka's coming in." I said, "He's got this new Laughter and Tears was the album, massive album." I said, "He's coming in, we'd like to try and do the show." He said, "Have you got the work permit?" I said, "Work permit? What's the work permit?" I mean, this is how raw I was. But he said, "Oh no," he said, "they have to have it, Mike, 3 weeks before they can do the TV because he's an American art." So luckily we'd got about a week's grace. So I phoned up, I forget who it was, there's a department you phoned to get the work.
Trying to get a
but
permit.
when you think that, I mean, I'd just gone from sales into being promotion. And Neil Sedaka, I love him dearly, a wonderful artist, but he loved things to be spot on. And to actually then sort of go and be the first major TV show. But in a way, Kevin, it was a great baptism, because I think having done a network show, and then you're thrown in the deep end and handled it and got away with it, so to speak. So I think, oh, that's great. And of course, all at Polydor said, oh, great, Mike, that great show. And you're on your way then, aren't you? And a lovely story about Neil, again at Pebble Mill, at a later time. He came to do the show, and Donna McLeod, one of the presenters who was based in Scotland, couldn't get to the studio, and they had to cut the show to half. It was 45 minutes. Anyway, Neil was due to do 2 songs, and they said, oh, we're sorry, Neil, but Donny can't get here, and it's been cut to half an hour, so we can only do 1 song. And Neil said, but gosh, my fans, and he was apoplectic about it. But then I said, oh, look, Neil, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll get them to pre-record the set. Now, I didn't know whether they could, but luckily a lovely man called Mike Ford, who's head of Radio 2 then in the Midlands, could see I was in a spot. So he came out with his tape. He said, Neil, he said, I'm head of Radio 2. I've got a Saturday morning show, fully networked. Mike said you've got 10 minutes to spare. Come through.
Come and do an
and I said, oh, Neil, this is national radio. So we sort of escorted him to the studios to do that. Then I frantically went to I said, look, Neil's going berserk at that. I said, you've got to do something. Anyway, they said, look, Mike, we heard it. We'll do the second number, and we put it out on Friday. So I said, great news, Neil, we're doing the second. Yeah. But after that, he loved Pebble Mill. We went back to do a radio session with Mike Ford, with the Norrie Paramore Orchestra, and he did his piano, and he did an hour special. And then for the TV, we did a Saturday morning special, right. 5 songs. A lot of time for Neil. I loved his music. And
who was the artist, or what was the story that you were telling me, that you had a busloads of kids?
Yeah, I mean,
and had to lay sandwiches on.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, Diana Ross, who great artist and world star, but she did a record, an album, and a single with Nile Rodgers, the producer who was into the discotheque Vogue at that time. Yeah. And I think because Diana wanted to sort of appeal to an audience and it'll be street cred, if you like, and it was arranged that we have some children from Brixton come in and sort of meet her at Wembley. She was rehearsing for a show at Wembley. Anyway, I had a call in the morning. I think Lynn Franks was a main PR lady, but I was just like the intermediary with EMI. And we got the coach and all the children. Anyway, I had a call to say they wanted to cancel it. I said, well, look, you can't do that. They've taken time off, the coach on the way. And anyway, they understood. And I said, look, we'll set up a little reception area. And she did a rehearsal, came off and met them all. But say it was a bit hairy for a moment, and I think she's having a problem with the band that day. I think the drummer got sacked, and she's doing interviews for Going Live, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, she's a consummate professional, but I say sometimes things, they can change their mind, but with that one it was difficult because it was a school, wasn't it, really?
Sure. Yeah. And some artists we know go bad.
Yeah.
One of the worst prolific ones we've heard of is Gary Glitter.
Yeah.
But you've got a story to share with Gary. That was funny.
Gary,
Tell me
I mean, actually, Gary was he was a laugh-a-minute guy. I mean, he did Rock and Roll Christmas, which was the one I got involved with, and that was a massive hit, a top 10 song. But he did a comeback tour. He did the university circuit, and he became very popular. And when he was promoting the Rock and Roll one, we managed to get Tiswas, which again, but again, it was funny enough that the latest programme, he did show a clip of him being on Tiswas. And what happened was Sally James had Who's Our Mystery Guest Today then? And we used to have this big paper bag over the artist's head. So as Sally said that, they pulled off the paper bag, and lo and behold, there would be the guest artist. Well, in this occasion, it was Gary Glitter, and unknown to me at the time and millions of other people, but Gary wore a hairpiece, and I didn't know. I don't think the record company or the manager did. Well, he did know, but he didn't tell her. So can you believe 5 minutes to going on air, just before we do this reveal of Gary Glitter, the manager said, Mike, he can't do that because he's got a hair. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? 5 minutes before a major lecture. So I had to run upstairs to the producer, Glyn Edwards. I said, Glyn, major problem. He said, he was pulling it. I said, I didn't know. I said, look, what I'll do, and I don't know how I thought of this, Kevin. I said, I'll cut the back of the bag, and I can see me now. I got a pair of scissors and I cut the whole of the back of that bag, placed it over Gary's head, and I said, Sally, whatever you do. And if you probably look at that clip again, you can see she's sort of parting the cut and lifting it off his head. And there's Gary in all his glory. But I didn't know that till that day. And of course, I would never divulge that. I mean, I could have gone to the News of the World, the Sun, but I never would do that because, obviously there's propriety and you have to honour the artist. But he was a character. I know he'd done those dreadful things and, in the light of day, but he did make that comeback, as I say. And but that was this happens in TV. I mean, sometimes, the artists aren't there. You have to rush to get them. But that was quite a hair-raising moment, literally. Yeah. But I could see the Glyn Edwards couldn't believe it, the producer. And
but I bet at the time your heart must have sank.
Well, what do you do, Ken? I mean, they couldn't change it for that one thing, could they? Well, perhaps they would have had to have done, but you just think on your feet then, don't you, really?
One of the things that people might not know when you're doing promotions is, I'm going to use Daniel O'Donnell as an example of this, is when you arrange, or if Daniel's performing in Skegness, for example, or Hull or anywhere, you've got to pre-arrange the promotion. Yeah. Then you've got to come here in advance with the artist, promote them before to get them to sell tickets.
That's right.
And people don't see that side because I met you once at 10 o'clock at night.
That's right.
You and Daniel at the station.
On the road all day. That's right. Yeah.
And how difficult is that to keep that up?
Actually, that was one of the hardest trips I did because we did it all by train. Actually, I didn't remember that, but
yeah, I remember you came in the train.
We went to Ipswich first, then Norwich. Then to Hull, didn't we? And then we went up to But
I had to go to Newcastle, didn't you?
Newcastle, but I had to get different trains at different times. And I remember doing it with Joan at the office in Dublin. And that was one of the toughest regional trips I ever. But it went like clockwork. We did major TVs, but as you know, we met you at that centre. You laid it on. It was excellent. We did it. We went somewhere else.
Well, I mean, I only had to arrange it for the local area.
That's right. Yeah.
And I decided that. If this is going to work, everybody has to be in the one place.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
You know, so I couldn't imagine, apart from when we did the local TV news, and when we got there, the studio had closed down, and Daniel was running.
Yeah, we had that one time, we were a bit late getting there, when we run across the park and we trying to find the studio.
That's right.
That was down the line to Hull. But I think what helped me, though, because I'd been head of regional promotion at Polydor and EMI, I knew all the city centres, I knew most of the radio and TV. But even so, doing that train thing was quite difficult because, you got connections to meet and you've got to be on time and all that. The last train, I think, from... was it the Cleethorpes train that comes?
Cleethorpes, yeah.
And I'll never forget, it was 2 carriages, absolutely packed. And can you imagine, there's me and Daniel with luggage, and then people sort of clocked it was Daniel. And then sort of, first of all, a little boy came up and said, "Are you Daniel O'Donnell?" And then the autograph. But he was great because there was no side to Daniel. He'd go on and do anything. He'd go on the back of a cart. But
we'd even get them a sausage roll.
Yeah, it was sausage roll, that's right. I mean, he was not fussy like that, but that was a very good trip because we did pre-sell the tickets, didn't we? And
so from the aspect of the artist to you, there's 3 aspects. There's the promoter, the artist, and the label. The label just want to sell records.
Yeah.
Your job's to get them on TV, radio, newspaper, to sell records.
Yeah.
What happens if you get an opportunity where you can get an artist some real good exposure, and then they come up with I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, it has happened to me, as you know. I think better not mention the artist, but
Fern Britton?
Fern Britton show, yeah. I mean, I worked at this particular artist. I got this slot on Fern Britton, and the feedback I'd got, BBC One, the breakfast show on the Saturday morning.
That's right, yeah.
And I was working for the record company who'd invested in a TV album. And anyway, this Fern Britton, which was a hard show to get, I mean, that had Tony Blair, Nelson Mandela. I mean, you're talking big league stuff
names,
here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd got the show, and the answer back was no, and I was flabbergasted. And in all my years, I thought, it's my own, what do I do? And I said to my partner, Pam, I'm going to send an email. I'm going for broke here because this is not right. You get a feeling, don't you, that this is the wrong choice.
Is this a case of an artist, they get to sell so many records, they earn so much money that they get to decide, what they do and what they don't want to do, even although that without all this, they wouldn't have got there in the first place. I think
the problem is, Kevin, it's not me speaking to the art. If I'd got that artist face to face, I think I would have sold. But when you've got an intermediary who was never that keen on PR, I'll be honest with you, and I said to this gentleman, he said, if I ever needed a favour off Daniel, Mike, I could get it. And I said, dear so-and-so, I think you need to call in your favour. I said, this is one of the biggest shows on Sunday television with a super presenter. It's not just about religion, it's about career, the new album.
It was a documentary, I've seen it.
And I said, and the record company are doing TV advertising. I don't think they'll be very happy to think. I said, you can have Saturday and Sunday on BBC One, and you're turning
which is now impossible.
I said, I think this is the wrong decision, and I would hopefully, respectfully, could you go back again? And I sent it, I said, Pam, that could be the end of my connection here. But luckily, the answer was yes, and they did the show, and the record company phoned me and said, Mike, that's the best show I've ever seen that person on. So you get a feeling, you've been in the game, Kevin, you know, promotion is the most necessary tool to get your records and
profile. But when they talk about the music business, the business is more important than the music, because within the business it's a hobby.
You could have the best record ever made, couldn't you? And if you couldn't get TV or radio or how many bands have done? I've seen great bands at EMI. They've signed, but for some reason they don't connect with the public, or they don't get sufficient promotion, if you like. And that's why it was so important when you get these shows, you have to do them and do them well. And I mean, some artists do treat them with it and don't put the effort in. And I'll say that about Cliff. I told you the story when he was making a video at Elstree, and I'd arranged a show with a chap who was in a wheelchair. It was on Channel 4, a little pop show. Right, and Cliff had said, I'll do it when I have my lunch break. Anyway, he ran over the video, and his manager again said, no, I said, excuse me, it's a network show, it's been agreed, they're set up in that room. And when Cliff cut, I said, Cliff, can you spare it? He said, yeah, grab a sandwich. He said, and I'll eat it. And I remember Cliff walking across the courtyard, had the sandwich, and he sat down, did a lovely interview. So the panic was over then. And the same happened with David Bowie. I went to a show he's promoting Tin Machine. He was at a theatre in London. I didn't do David's PR, but I was head of promotion, and I was asked to get some television at the theatre, which I got ITV News again.
So you're calling in your contacts.
A big TV. I got to the stage, and there's all these people around him. I said, look, I'm Mike Perry, head of promotion. I've come to do, you'll have to, you're not ready. You'll have to, I said, excuse me, you phoned me to get a TV now. They're here. They've got a schedule. They're going out on the news at 6 o'clock. And luck was have it, David Bowie walked. I said, hello, David, I'm Mike Perry from EMI. I've got ITN News here. I said, can you just spare? Okay, Mike, bring him over. And as I said to you before, you get these flunkies around, and they
miss them out, go straight to the artist.
But if you get to them face, and David was lovely. I mean, I love David Bowie, but
I've actually had to do that with Daniel at times. Where, as you know, I've had to get something on film, and I'm thinking, do I go through the office? Because when you go through the office, everything takes its time. They're speaking, and by the time it gets to Daniel, they've got the whole story wrong. And
that's right.
And I thought, no. And I ended up, I packed the car up with the camera gear. I went straight to the venue. I set the tripod up, and I said, Daniel, you couldn't do me a favour, could you? And you get it done.
You get it done straight away. And I told her the Stevie Nicks story. Love Stevie. She did an album for EMI, and the Tube team, great Malcolm Gary and Gavin Taylor, the director, we'd arranged it. Osterley Park Stately Home in London. It's beautiful building, all the cornice, the ballroom. We were due to film in the afternoon, and we got there, and we actually started film about 9 o'clock in the evening. And the problem was you'd got hairdressers, chauffeurs, some of them, and you got these people all the time. That's not right, Steve. You do and I felt sorry for it, but in the end, Gavin Taylor, I loved dealing, one of the most professional directors. He said, "In your own time, Stevie, when you're ready, Steve." And in the end, we did it. It was a great show. And the same with Meatloaf. He did the Tube. I've got a broken leg. I was on crutches then, and he said, "Get me a sandwich, Mike." And I went to the canteen. Anyway, that's aside. And he got got a 15-minute slot, and he did his intro, little chat. He did spot on 15-minute dead. He was another top professional meatloaf. Great guy, but he never remarked on me at all. He just treated me with broken leg or not. But I like that, because you didn't want that sort of attention, did you? And it did me good to sort of just be on the road again with helping the artist.
Did you regret leaving EMI and going on your own?
I did a little bit, yeah, because I think when you've got a big label, it did open doors for me, because I could say, well, if you take the Stray Cats, I can get you Cliff, or I can get you Cena. You've got that extra ammunition, haven't you? So, but I think with my reputation and the acts I'd worked with, I did have an in. I did keep good contact. So, but I hadn't got that way. And when really Daniel was the major artist, I hadn't got up-and-coming bands coming through to push through. David Essex was obviously established. That was Frankie Valli, The Shadow. They were good acts to work, because they're steady, they're sold.
You worked with the Thompson Twins as well?
Oh, Thompson Twins, they were great people. I mean, of all the bands, I would say they were one of the nicest bands. They started off, and you'll love this, they phoned me once, they were in a transit van in Scotland. There used to be 10 on the road originally, then it went down to 3. But a lovely story with the Thompson Twins. They did virtually every station in the country, but we still couldn't get that breakthrough. And it was a weekend, it was the Tube that did it. And Malcolm Gerry, I took him out for dinner, and his wife had come up from Newcastle. And I said, Malcolm, is there any chance you can get to Thompson? I said, we've got this great new, I think it was Hold Me Close or Doctor. I said, it's a great record. He said, well, play me the video. And he played, and he said, he said, all right, we'll have them next Friday. So I was absolutely thrilled. We've got a breakthrough. And then the greatest thing ever, I then phoned Tiswas and said, look, Thompson Twins are coming, they're doing the Tube, this is going to be a big... And they did Tiswas. And what we did the show in the Newcastle on the Friday of the Tube, which finished about 7. We had special equipment, they had these like screens. We had to load up and we then drove to Birmingham to the TV studio, set all the stuff up. So it was like midnight when I got home, went to the studios, and they stole the show. They were fantastic. And those 2 shows, and then the Thompson Twins were enormous. They were the 5th biggest selling actor one year.
Oh, they were huge in Scotland as well.
And Tom Bailey was lovely. I remember once I was driving in from Pebbleman, I got the ABBA cassette with all... So he said, no, Mike, he said, they're great songwriters. He said, I love ABBA. But when you listen to Tom, they're very poppy commercial records, aren't they?
Yeah,
but they were lovely people, and I did enjoy working with them immensely. And they were very grateful, really. Yeah, very. And another classic story here, they didn't do the Band-Aid record because the manager didn't think it was worthwhile. I mean, they were fuming. Oh, wow. They were offered to do it. I don't give him credit. I don't think he realised what was going to happen. And another show, there was a Channel 4 show, Network, very popular one. And again, this manager was hivering and hovering. I said, look, this is a big show. I said, but it's true, even then, trying to advance the career. Yeah. And I spoke to Tom Bailey, he said, Mike will do it. So that was the difference. I could speak to Tom, and he said, oh, I love that show, Mike will do it. And they did it, so that's how it happens, really. But I think a lot of it is for this image, all these people around and all this self-importance. But if you get to the artist direct and say, this is it, they respect that, don't they? And they're not going to put on rubbish shows. You're trying to do the very best for them.
COVID
hits, yeah.
COVID hits. The artists are now taken to the likes of Facebook to do their promotions. Well, I'd imagine that you're redundant because there's nowhere open.
Well, there's nowhere open. There's no tours. There's nothing happening really. But what upset me, Matt, I did have an email from someone saying that I was no longer their PR man, and after a long time, I was quite disappointed that I didn't even have a personal phone call. And that is one side of the business, as you were talking earlier, that at the end of the day, it's a business, isn't it? That you are important to that extent, but when you're not there, it's the next person that's important, or it's the business side. Oh, we've got rid of him because we've got this one coming in, and we want a new look and we want something fresher. But
I would have thought after all them years of working and building that relationship, sitting in the car, going out for dinner and arranging all that promotion. Not even a phone call to see if you were all right. I was
very, very upset, and I said, of all my years in the business, I really thought this person would have had the Well, I say not to merit, but just to say, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm sorry it's happened. It wasn't my decision. You did me a great job. And I'll tell you this, I don't think anyone could have done any more with that artist. From all the shows I've mentioned, we had every major show in this country, and it was hard work at times, Kevin. But I've got a clear conscience. Every act I've worked with, I'm sure those, I gave my best shot. I worked tirelessly.
And rightly so. I've worked with you, Mike, as well, and I've over the years I've gotten to know how hard things are to get these artists on TV, and then they're up against you as well because they're like, I don't know, they don't realise it's taken 3 weeks to get this interview arranged.
I know, that's right, absolutely.
And you've got a 2-minute decision to make, and you're humming and hawing about it. I don't get it, No,
it's.
But then not to call you during COVID and say, hey.
Yeah,
are you all right?
Yeah, I was very disappointed about it, I must be honest. And you expect them to show I'll tell you a lovely example. BRMB Radio just had their 50th anniversary party. That was in '74, and as I said to you, I was there the week before the station opened, and we were in a pub round the corner, and all the DJs, and I said, Mike, and we've got this and this coming in. And what was lovely, we went to a lovely pub in the middle of Birmingham, and to think that they'd invite 50 years, and they said, Mike, we can't thank you enough for all the acts. And I was the first, Slade were the first big act that I took in there. And they'd only been on air a few weeks, and Slade were playing the Odeon Theatre. And this is funny, look, it was where the old ATV studios were that did Boy. And there was only a waste ground, was like the car park opposite. And anyway, I said to the guy, I'd phoned Slade's manager, he said, they're playing at the Odeon, Mike, they're bringing in their own cars, so if you just wait at the door and meet them. And I'll never forget it. Suddenly there's this Jensen arrived, the Jensen Interceptor, Dave Hill, you can't mistake Dave Hill. He said, hello. I said, I'm Mike Perry. He said, hello, mate, where we going? And then where we going to go? And I said, if you just pop in there, Dave. And then Noddy Holder comes round, then Jimmy Lee and Domper. And they were the nicest lads. And this is a gospel troupe. We took them upstairs to do the afternoon show. And every executive, secretary, the cleaner, they all stood in the corridor watching Slade do this. And it went on, I'm not joking, they were meant to be there for a couple of hours. And then the John Russell, gone now, bless him, but he was the programme director. He said, Mike, it's going that well. Will they stay and do the 6 o'clock news? I said, the news programme. And they had this special presenter. His name was Brian, and he had this terrible affliction. He's got his knees, but when he's talking, he's like moving in the chair. And and I'm not joking, this is true. So Slater in the studio, and this newsreader, he's saying, what's it like to be Slater? No, very non-Slater, but he's good in a way, because Jimmy Lee was and Noddy was going to be a teacher. But they start mimicking him. And I'm not. I had an handkerchief, my tears of them, and I had to stop because they're all laughing, and he couldn't see what was going on. I think it was only Noddy, but they were lovely. They were down to earth. From all, we used to go to Jimmy Lee's house. We'd have a bacon and egg sandwich with his wife, then go and do the radio. And I took them to Derby. We were promoting the film Flame. They had the big limo, and it was this dame, and you press a button at the back and it opens the door, and the driver was Graham Swinnerton, Swin the roadie. Then if they didn't, they'd just shut him off again. And it was like kids half an hour all the way to Derby.
So one last quick story was, we'll no name the artist.
Okay.
But this was you go backstage, you're promoting this artist.
Oh.
And
I've got to be careful here, Kevin.
And
some of these hiccup, you get artists a bit late for go. Anyway, this particular show was a Saturday morning show, and all the guests, the sort of parents, are in the green room, and you got the artist. And this artist, I thought, where's he gone to? And it was about when you're a promotion man, you've got the script, so I've got to make sure that the acts are ready to go. 2 minutes to go, no sign of them. So I'm banging on the dressing room door, and suddenly the door opens, and I'm regaled by, shall we say, an intimate moment with someone. I think one of the parents. I think, oh no! I said, Alan, you're on now. So anyway, they went and did the show, but. That abiding memory of what that happened, but as a PR, and I've seen things go on, but as I'm so loyal, I never drank, I never took drugs, and you know why? Because once you lose control of yourself, you stop representing the art. And even when I used to go to Top of the Pops, I was known as the man with the suit. And isn't that, I mean, some had turned up, I'm not joking, faded jeans, shorts, couldn't care less.
Well, there's a credit on an album about your jacket.
Sorry, the Shadows, which was a lovely tour. Hank Marvin, great guy. I mean, I love the Shadow. Wonderful Land is one of my favourites of all. I've got that on my list of music. And yeah, we did the album with Hank. It went gold for Polygram Brian Berg again. And on the sleeve it said, and thanks to Mike the Coat Perry, because I had a penchant for coats. I used to love a black check one, a brown one, and I always wore these when we were on. And he said, I love your jackets, Mike. But it was that nice to put that on a Joe Longthorne gave me. I forgot Joe Longthorne. He was a great actor. Worked when I was independent. That was for EMI, funny enough, their team. But I went and they phoned me up, and I did it. He was a great artist, but again a bit funny crowd with and a bit temperamental. So he was hard work, but great artist. But I enjoyed working with him.
So despite all the years in the music industry, everything you've done, you're 80 years of age nearly.
Yeah.
This is your first podcast.
Yes, it is. I was a bit nervous, but I did jot. Do you know what's the problem? You suddenly new memories come along. Even coming today driving, I'd worked over the weekend on the highlights, but there's always something you forget, or I think, I should have mentioned that. But I think I've covered most areas. And as I say, I look back, it's a very lucky person.
Well, it's been interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hope that the viewers, because I'm sure they don't know behind the scenes, do they?
They see the artists. There's some stories on YouTube as well about record labels, but I wanted you to come in and do this podcast. I've known you for 10, 15 years, Mike, and I know the hard work that goes into the back of promoting artists.
Well, you've seen us on the road together, haven't you?
You know, all these artists get these millions of views on YouTube. And the only reason they get millions of views is because of people like you.
Well, that's right,
You know, so I think for that's why I wanted you to come in. But listen, it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it.
Privileged and honoured that you've taken the time to interview me.
Thanks for coming on, Mike.
All the best, Kevin. And
I appreciate it.
Good luck with the podcast.
And did you enjoy the fish and chips?
I did. Well, we had it years ago with Dan in Cleethorpes, but the best, I've said before, the best fish and chips are from the seaside, and we had beautiful haddock and chips, didn't it? It's been, 7 or 8 years since we were there?
7 or 8 years,
And I've just phoned my partner, Pam, and said, just had those wonderful fish and chips again. So worth the trip for that, Kevin.
That's right, aye. Well, listen, have a safe journey back. You've came a long way to come and see us. And
thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with everything.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.